Welcome to Film Reveal Decoder 2.0, where we bring your favorite movies back to life with quick recaps, hidden details, and everything you might have missed. Our story begins with Chris, who is speeding down the road anxious about an important job interview. But fate has other plans. As he drives, he suddenly comes across a roadblock, an accident ahead. Frustrated, he steps out of his car and approaches a nearby truck driver to find out what's going on. The driver explains that a truck carrying chemical materials has overturned, blocking the road for at least 2 hours. Chris doesn't have that kind of time. Desperate to reach his destination, he decides to find an alternative route. He drives until he spots a small old gas station and stops to make a call, hoping to inform his employer about the delay. But there's another problem: the phone isn't working. The gas station owner nonchalantly tells him that the phone doesn't connect over long distances. Annoyed, Chris asks for directions and the owner points him to a map nearby. As he studies it, he finds an alternative route, but just as he's about to leave, the gas station owner warns him the road is dangerous. But Chris has no choice. Ignoring the warning, he drives off and soon reaches a fork in the road. Left or right? He hesitates, then takes the left path, a choice that will change everything. As he speeds down the road, his eyes catch something disturbing: a dead animal lying in the middle of the road. Distracted for a moment, he doesn't notice another car until it's too late. He collides with the vehicle, damaging his own car in the process. The people in the other car rush out, checking on Chris. He assures them he's fine and even offers to help fix their vehicle. That's when one of them points out the real problem. Someone had placed barbed wire on the road, causing their tire to burst. Now stranded together, they decide to look for a phone to call for help. Jess suggests there's a gas station nearby, but Chris quickly shuts that idea down. He was just there and the phone didn't work. With no other choice, they agree to search the forest for help, leaving 2 people behind to watch over the cars. As they walk, Chris tries to make small talk with Scott, asking what brought them here. Scott explains they were just on a road trip for a change of scenery but got lost. Chris checks his watch. Time is slipping away. He still hopes to make it to his interview somehow. Then in the distance they see something: a fire burning deep in the forest. Could someone be there? Scott calls out, but no one answers. Meanwhile, Evan, one of the group members, wanders off looking for something to eat. A rustling sound nearby catches his attention. Curious, he investigates, but he doesn't return. His girlfriend, growing concerned, goes searching for him. Then she sees something horrifying on the ground: Evan's ear. She freezes in shock. Before she can react, a massive figure emerges from the shadows, wraps her in barbed wire, and in an instant ends her life. Unaware of the danger lurking nearby, Chris and the others stumble upon a house deep in the woods. Desperate, they knock on the door, hoping for help. No answer. Chris cautiously pushes the door open. Silence. The place seems abandoned. Hesitant but desperate, they step inside. The first thing they notice? A horrible stench. The deeper they go, the worse it gets. Something about this house feels off. Then they start seeing things: knives, sharp tools, and something even more disturbing: jars. Jars filled with human teeth, organs, livers, and kidneys. Then they spot barbed wire, exactly like the one that caused the earlier accident. Realization strikes. This house belongs to whoever set the trap. Chris gulps and moves toward the fridge. His fingers tremble as he slowly opens it. Inside, a box filled with human organs sits in the cold. A wave of terror washes over them. They need to get out now. Immediately, panic sets in. Just as they reach the door, headlights appear outside. A car pulling up. Chris whispers urgently, suggesting they escape through the back door. But when they reach it, their hearts sink. It's blocked with wood. There's no way out. With no other choice, they hide inside the house. Chris and Jess squeeze under the bed, barely breathing. Scott and Karen huddle behind the wooden back door, their hands trembling. Then, heavy footsteps echo. A cannibal enters the house, dragging something behind him. The sound of metal clinking sends shivers down their spines. He tosses a bloodied wire onto the bed where Chris and Jess are hiding. And then the horror unfolds. Their friend's lifeless body is thrown onto the ground right in front of them, covered in blood. Jess's eyes widen in shock. Her hands clamp over her mouth, struggling to suppress a scream. Tears well up, but she can't make a sound. The cannibals drag the body away, ready to carve it up. A sickening sound fills the air as they begin their gruesome work. Scott and Karen watch in sheer horror, unable to look away as their friend is dismembered before their eyes. Then, a glimmer of hope. A rifle placed carelessly by one of the cannibals falls near Chris. His fingers inch forward, shaking. One wrong move and it's over. Sweat beads on his forehead as he carefully reaches for it. The cannibals eat their grotesque meal and, after what feels like an eternity, fall asleep. Now's their chance. Chris cautiously slides slides out from under the bed, motioning for Jess to follow. Scott and Karen emerge as well. Every step feels like a lifetime. The floor creaks. They freeze. No movement. Then, disaster strikes. A metal can tips over, clattering to the floor. A cannibal stirs in his sleep, grunting. The group holds their breath. Silence. They slowly push open the door. But then, Chris notices something. The door has a spring that creaks when moved. He grabs it tightly to muffle the sound, his hand bleeding from the force. The pain is unbearable, but he doesn't let go. Just as they step outside, one of the cannibals wakes up. Chris runs first, leading them up a steep hill, forcing their aching legs to move faster. They glance back. The cannibals are chasing them. Karen, on the verge of panic, sobs, but Scott grabs her hand. "We'll make it out," he promises. Then, they stumble upon something horrifying. A clearing filled with cars. But these aren't just cars. They're covered in blood. The truth hits them hard. These belong to the cannibals' past victims. They frantically search for a working car, but every vehicle is wrecked. Suddenly, the cannibals arrive. Chris whispers a plan. One person will distract them while the others escape. He volunteers. Before anyone can stop him, he makes a run for it, drawing attention. But a gunshot rings out. Chris screams in pain as a bullet tears into his leg. Scott shouts for him, but the cannibals charge after him instead. Jess and Karen rush to Chris, his face contorted in agony. He grits his teeth, pulls off his belt, and ties it around his leg to stop the bleeding. No time to waste. They jump into one of the cannibals' cars and speed away. As they drive, Scott suddenly appears running beside them. They slow down, calling out to him. Then, an arrow pierces his back. Scott stumbles. Another arrow. His body collapses. Jess screams. Karen breaks down, sobbing. But they can't stop. They have to keep going. Then, another problem. The road is blocked. They try to reverse, but the car gets stuck in mud. No choice left. They abandon the vehicle and continue on foot. Karen loses hope. Tears streak her face. "We're going to die anyway," she whispers. "I can't walk anymore." Jess grabs her hands. "We'll get out of here. I promise." Chris leans on a tree branch, his leg throbbing with pain. The snip. The branch triggers a hidden trap, but by sheer luck it misses him. They keep moving. Chris can barely walk now. His body gives in. Then, they spot something. A watchtower, high above them. Could this be their way out? Surrounded by the dense forest, darkness swallowing them, Chris and Jess feel like there's no way out. The trees stretch endlessly in all directions. No path, no hope. Searching desperately, they stumble upon a first aid kit. Jess, her hands trembling, treats Chris's wound, pressing against the bleeding with whatever supplies they can find. Pain flickers across his face, but he forces himself to endure. Then, a flicker of light in the distance. Night has fallen and glowing orbs illuminate the area. Their hearts race. Is it help? Or something far worse? Near the lights, they discover a radio transmitter. Jess grabs it, frantically calling for help. Silence. No response. Chris takes over, adjusting dials, pleading for anyone to hear them, but the only reply is static. Then suddenly, movement below. Chris, keeping watch, sees shadows shifting through the trees. The cannibals. They're searching, hunting. Chris turns fast, whispering sharply, "Kill the light, now." They hide in silence, watching the cannibals move past the tower, oblivious to their presence. Then, a loud noise. The transmitter crackles violently, sending a shrill sound into the night. The cannibals freeze. They look up. Chris's stomach drops. They know. The cannibals charge, climbing the tower with unbelievable speed. Chris slams the staircase door shut, shoving everything he can against it, desperate to block their way. A cannibal pushes against it, growling like an animal. Chris kicks hard, sending the cannibal plummeting down, his screams fading into the night. But something is wrong. A new smell fills the air. Their eyes widen in horror. The tower is on fire. They're trapped. The flames rise, heat licking at their skin. Kara, panicked beyond reason, rushes to the window. "I'd rather jump than burn alive." Chris, looking out, sees only one way. The trees. He looks at Kara. "You're right." He doesn't hesitate. He leaps. A moment of weightlessness, then impact. He grabs a branch, his arms burning from the strain. He looks up. "I'm okay. Jump." Kara gathers her courage and leaps, catching a nearby branch. Jess follows next, barely making it. For a second they think they've escaped. Then, an arrow slices through the air. It barely misses Jess. One of the cannibals is climbing after them. Chris yells, "Move, now." They start crossing to another tree. Jess makes it across. Kara, paralyzed with fear, hesitates. Jess sees the cannibal getting closer. She wants to scream, warn Kara, but Chris covers her mouth. A second later, the cannibal reaches Kara. A blade flashes. Her scream never comes. Chris and Jess watch in horror as Kara's head is severed in one clean motion. They have to fight back. Chris and Jess set a trap. They pull a tree branch tight, positioning it like a spring-loaded weapon. Jess calls out, baiting the cannibal. As soon as he steps close, Chris releases the branch. The cannibal is knocked backward, tumbling violently. The remaining cannibals shriek in rage. Chris and Jess flee, plunging into a waterfall. They hold their breath, hiding beneath the water. The cannibals rush past, never seeing them. Once it's safe, they crawl onto the shore, exhausted, shivering. They collapse under the trees, finally resting. The next morning, hope appears. A road. Salvation. Chris and Jess cry in relief, running toward it. But before they can reach safety, an ambush. The cannibals attack. They grab Jess, dragging her away. Chris is thrown down a hill. Jess's screams fade as she's taken. Chris stumbles back to his feet. Then a car. A police officer stops, stepping out. Chris rushes forward, desperate. Please. They took her. They're going to kill her. The officer raises a calming hand. Don't worry. You're safe now. Thunk. An arrow pierces the officer's eye. Chris stares in shock as the man drops dead. He lunges for the police car, scrambling inside. No keys. Another arrow flies, just missing him. No choice. He dives under the car, hiding. Then, a chilling sound. One of the deformed cannibals approaches. He bends down, peering under the car. Chris's heart pounds. This is it. They joke about it, thinking it's some kind of survival test, but as they get closer, a horrific stench fills the air. Jones hesitates. Something's wrong. Amber shrugs, hungry and exhausted. It's just food, maybe a trap, but I'm starving. Before she can take a bite, a rustling sound. They turn sharply. From the shadows, a deformed figure emerges. A cannibal. Amber's breath catches in her throat. Jones grabs her arm. Run. They sprint into the forest, adrenaline surging, branches whipping against their skin. The cannibal chases after them fast. Too fast. Jones trips over a root, crashing to the ground. Amber stops, panicked. Get up. Jones struggles, his leg caught in the undergrowth. The cannibal lunges, axe raised. At the last second, Jones twists away and the blade slams into the dirt. Amber grabs a rock, hurling it at the cannibal's face. A sickening crack. The creature staggers back, dazed. They take their chance, running deeper into the woods. Meanwhile, Jake and Elena navigate another part of the forest, unaware of the horror unfolding. Jake jokes, "This place feels like a horror movie set." Elena doesn't laugh. Then, a scream in the distance. They freeze. Elena's eyes widen. That was real. Jake swallows hard. "We need to go back." Elena shakes her head. "No, we need to hide." A shadow moves between the trees. Someone, or something, is watching them. Jake grabs Elena's hand. "Run." But before they can move, an arrow flies through the air. It strikes Jake in the shoulder. He stumbles back, gasping in pain. Elena screams, gripping his arm. "Stay with me." A second arrow pierces his chest. His eyes widen in shock. He collapses. Elena turns to run, but slams into something solid. A cannibal grinning. She doesn't even have time to scream. Meanwhile, back at the base camp, the organizers notice something strange. The cameras are going dark, one by one. The technician frowns, adjusting the screens. What the hell is happening? Then static. Before he can react, a blade pierces through his back. Blood splatters the monitors. The competition is no longer a game. It's a hunt, and the contestants are the prey. Jake spots an abandoned axe nearby. He grabs it, breathing heavily, and prepares for a fight. The cannibals laugh mockingly, advancing toward him. Jake swings the axe, striking one in the arm, but the cannibal doesn't flinch. Instead, he grabs Jake by the throat, lifting him off the ground. Jake struggles, gasping for air. The second cannibal raises a machete. A gunshot echoes through the forest. The cannibal holding Jake staggers back, blood gushing from his chest. Jake falls to the ground, coughing. Dale emerges from the shadows, holding a shotgun. "Get up," Dale orders. Jake scrambles to his feet, staring at Dale in disbelief. "You saved me." Dale nods, reloading his gun. "We need to find the others." Meanwhile, Elena, trapped in the pit, desperately searches for a way out. The pit is deep and filled with bones, remnants of past victims. She tries to climb, but the walls are too slippery with blood and mud. A shadow looms above her. A cannibal peers down, grinning. Elena's heart pounds. The cannibal throws a rope down, pretending to help. But as Elena reaches for it, the cannibal yanks it back, laughing. A sick game. Just then, a loud explosion shakes the ground. The cannibal looks up distracted. Seizing the moment, Elena grabs a sharp bone from the pit floor and hurls it at the cannibal's eye. He screams in agony, falling backward. Elena climbs out using every ounce of strength she has left. At the same time, Dale and Jake hear the explosion and rush toward it. They find Elena bloodied but alive. Jake hugs her, tightly relieved. Dale reloads his shotgun. "We need to get out of here now." Suddenly, a guttural roar from behind them. The leader of the cannibals, burned but still alive, emerges from the wreckage. His disfigured face is twisted with rage. He charges at them. Dale raises his shotgun, but he's out of ammo. The leader swings an axe at Dale's head. Elena shoves Dale aside at the last second. Jake grabs a metal rod from the ground and stabs the leader through the chest. The cannibal gasps, blood pouring from his mouth. Dale and Elena join in attacking together. With one final blow, Dale swings the axe, decapitating the leader. Silence. The forest is finally still. Breathing heavily, the survivors stagger toward the road. As the first rays of sunlight break through the trees, a police car approaches. The nightmare is over, or so they think. The final scene? Back in the forest, deep underground, a pair of glowing eyes open. The horror isn't over yet. The hunt will continue. Elena is rescued by Jake from the pit, just in time, narrowly escaping a pursuing cannibal. Meanwhile, Dale prepares for revenge, arming his arrows with dynamite and camouflaging himself with black paint to blend into the forest. Determined to put an end to the terror, he stalks the cannibals with deadly precision. Elsewhere, Jones and Amber unknowingly trigger a trap, leaving them hanging in the air. Amber attempts to free Jones but accidentally sets off another mechanism, suspending herself beside him. A cannibal and his son arrive, eager to kill. The father allows his son to prove himself, and the young cannibal successfully kills both with a single arrow. Meanwhile, Elena and Jake discover a strange house in the middle of the forest, hoping to find a communication device to call for help. Instead, they stumble upon a massive collection of abandoned vehicles, realizing they belong to the cannibals' past victims. Among them, they spot their own truck. Suddenly, they hear Michael's voice coming from inside. Jake rushes to check if Michael is still alive, only to find a horrifying video playing inside the truck. It shows Michael being tortured before his head is severed. As Jake processes the horror, a cannibal sneaks up on him, slapping him hard. The attacker restrains Jake, ties him up, and drags him out of the truck. Elena is also captured and locked inside a cage. The cannibals, preparing their gruesome meal, set the severed head of Michael on the table, planning to eat it. They tie Elena to a chair with barbed wire, forcing her to sit with them. She watches in terror as they continue their feast. Unbeknownst to them, Dale accidentally stumbles upon the house. As he moves, his foot hits a toy, creating a noise that alerts the cannibals. They rise to investigate, hoping to find another victim. Acting quickly, Dale fires a dynamite arrow, hitting one of them. As another cannibal rushes in to help, the explosion kills them both. Dale then frees Elena, helping her untie her hands from the barbed wire. He also cuts Jake loose just as another cannibal storms in and attacks. The female cannibal, now enraged, shows her husband the blood-stained clothes of their dead son and daughter. Furious, the leader searches for their killers, eventually finding Jake. He brutally beats him, attempting to push him into a giant grinder to shred him alive. At the last moment, Elena intervenes, saving Jake. In the struggle, Jake manages to overpower the cannibal leader and tries to push him into the grinder. His wife rushes in to save him, but in a final act of desperation, Jake forces them both into the machine, eliminating them once and for all. With the nightmare finally over, Jake and Elena find Kim's car still intact in the garage. They take it and drive away, grateful for a second chance at life. As the scene shifts, a disturbing sight unfolds. Sewage water mixed with chemicals from the abandoned factory seeps into the forest. One of the surviving cannibals drinks the toxic water and feeds it to the newborn baby that was delivered earlier in the film. The baby spits it out dissatisfied, so the mother gives him a severed finger to suck on instead, like a pacifier. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for more thrilling horror recaps. See you next time.